let's talk about Ukraine. The hate towards all Russians without any exception is completely normal there. Many public persons with millions of followers in Telegram are saying that killing Russians is necessary, and they don't mean just Russian soldiers. If you are interested in this war, you know about Ukrainian deep state Telegram channel, just go and look on posts and comments there. In 2022, the most popular song in Ukraine was the song addressing the Russian soldier that soon he will die. There are Christmas tree ornaments, cut the Russians, socks I want 100,000 Russians dead, sausage death to Russians, etc. In Russia there are very few people who hate Ukrainians, and for everyone they are just weirdos. Maybe the only cities in Russia where there are people who hate Ukrainians are Donetsk and Lugansk, but even there is no merchandise with such signs. And even in Donetsk there are very few radical people compared to Ukraine. I know people from Donetsk who are very happy when Ukrainians have troubles with electricity, but I've never met anyone who was happy about children dying in Ukraine. And when some accidents are happening in Russia, Ukrainians are celebrating it as victory. Like the case when shark killed a Russian tourist in Egypt, so Ukrainians spent next 2 weeks making memes about it. I can't even imagine such insanity in Russia. And by the way, Ukrainians hate the Russian opposition as well. There are a lot of examples on Twitter. For them there is no difference, they think that good Russian is a dead Russian. Age also doesn't matter for them. There are a public person who said on Ukrainian television or in their Telegram channels that it's necessary to get rid of all Russians, including children. Ukraine and Russia have always been brotherly nations. Of course you can say that there were always banderates in the western Ukraine, and there were always Ukrainians who hated Russia, but they weren't majority. Before 2014 they didn't have a power. And Ukrainians in the central Ukraine and especially on the east were the same as Russians. But you know, Oceania had always been at war with East Asia. The only narrative in Ukraine is that Ukraine and Russia were at war for centuries. If someone is saying that Ukrainians and Russians were brothers, Ukrainians will insult him and wish him something bad. And to brainwash people and form the new reality, Ukraine completely rejects its past. All the Soviet monuments are being demolished. It's so pointless that there are cases when in the western Ukraine, people who has Ukrainian language as native are trying to protect their monuments that often are not related to Soviet Union or Russia.
Яка радянська влада, блядь? Вона що тримає, блядь? Руський прапор, блядь? Що ви нахуй приїбалися, блядь?
Будете захищати?
Конечно.
Мені зараз пали нахуй ту машину. Просто спали.
Я нахуй повибиваю вітер.
Дорогу порівняйте, світло проведіть в село, а щоб люди ноги не ламали. То не є Радянщина, то є пам'ятник Хліборобові, село Хліборобське. Розумієте? Ну, я не знаю, що він так комусь заважав.
Таке часто в селах, коли приїжджаєте до
Це
мене?
перший раз в Львівській області такий супротив. Видно,
З чим це пов'язуєш? Те, що гарна жінка?
є певні, видно, сексистські вподобання. Та звичка, тут не можна нічого.
There are many such cases in different cities, and there is no logic at all. In Odessa, Ukrainian activists are demolishing monuments to Russian emperors who found Odessa. In Kiev, they are demolishing monument to Kiev native writer. In Poltava, on the field where the Battle of Poltava took place, they are demolishing the monument to Peter the Great, who commanded that battle. Monuments to all Russian people are being demolished. Here you can see Ukrainians demolishing monument to Pavlov, who is famous neurologist and psychologist. He died 90 years ago, but seems like his monument is a problem. There wasn't enough money to demolish the Motherland Calls monument in Kiev, so Ukraine replaced hammer and sickle with the Ukrainian emblem. Ukrainians are also renaming everything that related to Russia, like the streets and subway stations, everything related to Russian people and cities. There are some funny things like there are a lot of villages to rename, and sometimes administration is changing one letter to make it sound Ukrainian and not Russian. And Russia helps the Ukrainians to get rid of their Soviet past by destroying power plants and factories which were built in Soviet Union. I think I have to say that Russia is not doing anything like this. There are monuments to Ukrainian people, like monuments to Shevchenko and Lesya Ukrainka in Moscow, thousands of Ukrainskaya streets, and streets with other names related to Ukraine. And the big problem in Ukraine is memory about the victory in World War II. Ukrainians practice double think on this topic. Officially, Ukrainian government is saying that Ukraine fought Germany, which is true. There were a lot of Ukrainians in the Red Army, much more than on the side of Nazis. 6 or 7 millions of Ukrainians on the side of Soviet Union against 250,000 on the side of Hitler. But if you want to celebrate the Victory Day in Ukraine, you will face problems with the police. Every year some people are being arrested for wearing red stars and Soviet symbols. All monuments to heroes of Great Patriotic War are being demolished as well, and even the fallen soldiers of Red Army are bothering Ukrainian government. In Lvov, at the Hill of Glory Memorial, the remains of Soviet soldiers are being exhumed for transfer to a city cemetery, after which the memorial will be closed. On the other hand, Ukraine glorifies people who fought for Nazi Germany. Stepan Bandera was made a national hero. There are a lot of memorial events for the SS division Galicia, which is a huge topic to talk about. There are also many streets named in honor of Roman Shukhevich. And Nazi symbols in Ukraine are very, very popular. There are thousands of photos and videos with Ukrainian soldiers wearing these patches. This emblem with Roman Aquila is especially popular. Maybe Ukrainians just like the Roman Empire, no Nazism. But don't worry, Nazi Germany flag is also popular, and usually there is no punishment for demonstrating it. This is how Ukrainian state works. There is a law against both communist and Nazi symbols, but for demonstrating Soviet flag you will be detained. And for the Nazi flag, nothing will happen. Oh, and here you can see the electronic warfare antenna for the Ukrainian army. By the way, Ukrainian army vehicles are usually marked with crosses, and Ukrainian military telegram channels are often using this symbol in usernames. Of course, Ukrainians have thousands of excuses. It's definitely not because they are cosplaying Nazis. One of the most important aspects that shows the real face of Ukraine is Russian language. It's a big and complicated topic, but in short, all Ukrainians in big cities in the eastern and central Ukraine have Russian language as native, which is more than 90% of population. But Ukrainian society went crazy on this, so Russian language is being suppressed. It started in 2014, and before war this was a very slow process. The language law which restricted Russian was adopted only in 2021, and even after it you could speak Russian, so Ukrainization would took like 10 years or more. However, after war began, the situation got much worse. There are activists who forces people to speak Ukrainian, and government supports these activists. There are dozens of videos where such current activists are starting conflicts with random people who speak Russian or listen in Russian music in public. Local administrations started to organize language patrols who make sure people speak Ukrainian. There are videos where activists harassing even children who were just listening songs in Russian. And after Ukrainian actor Bogdan Benyuk called for beating children with a rod for using the Russian language, Mayor of Ivano-Frankovsk started a poll in his Telegram channel where he asked people if it's okay to beat children for using Russian. But if you're interested to hear something really hilarious, publishing house from Dnipropetrovsk decided to destroy print run of a book by Ukrainian author. The books are in Ukrainian, of course, so why destroy them? Because author maintains her social media page in Russian. And it doesn't matter that author also has pages in Ukrainian and in English. What a nice country. You may think that this is crazy, but not for Ukraine, it's just normal there. Now let's move to even crazier part of this wonderful country. There is a single TV channel called Telemarathon. Even North Korea has 4 channels. Ukraine spends insane amount of money on this TV channel. The only content of this channel is obviously war, and there are many guests, usually soldiers or volunteers who help Ukrainian army. And they are often telling their ideas to improve Ukraine. Like some guys on Telemarathon said that it's necessary to arm TTSK workers with assault rifles and allow them to open fire. Or that Ukraine needs conscription of women. Or militarization of children. Here you can see a guy who says that children have to be prepared for the army from kindergarten.
Ви знаєте, треба починати з виховування національної свідомості. Тобто фактично вже від дитячого віку, від дитячого садку, якщо хочете, треба вже готувати людей, готувати населення до того, що воно є частиною збройної організації держави.
This is actually the worst part. The children. They are raised to believe that Russians are subhumans. There are hundreds of videos where Ukrainian mothers are teaching children to say Russian warship, go fuck yourself. Or where Ukrainian children are saying that they want all Russians to die. There is a video from 2022 where children are just stopping cars and saying that they will kill any Russian they will meet.
Так.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Скажіть слово паляниця.
Паляниця. А Укрзалізниця?
Укрзалізниця.
Проїжджайте. Проїжджайте. Щасливої дороги. Щасливої дороги.
От це да. Ні, молодці, молодці. Ви нікого не пускаєте на?
Ні. Коли ми спіняли машини, ніхто не стає.
Ніхто не стає? Знаєш, погано спиняйте. Дивіться, ворогів не пускайте сюди.
Якщо будуть русські, ми їх будемо стріляти. Отака.
Все, молодці. Давайте, пока.
Щасливої дороги вам.
And there are videos where children are helping to make shrapnel for drone charges.
Слава Україні, волонтерський центр «Рухні сторони», 7 березня. Отак вільні патріоти, фабрики добра допомагають працювати виробники, які молодці.
Here you can see an electronic warfare systems manufacturer who offering to assemble drones in schools. This is life in Ukraine. Of course, Ukrainian borders are closed for men over 18. TCK Vok is kidnapping men from streets. Russia launches hundreds of drones almost every night, and the front line is moving westward. But Ukrainians have their own reality. Head of their intelligence is reporting that Russia is carrying out forced conscription in the occupied territories. In my reality, forced conscription was only in Donetsk and Lugansk, and it ended 2.5 years ago. But in Ukrainian reality, there is Russian TCK, kidnapping men, maybe even in Mariupol. Of course, there is not a single video of it, but if you are following Ukrainian media, it's obvious that it's true. There is a departure board on a railway station somewhere in Ukraine, where there are trains to Mariupol, Donetsk and Crimea, and you can even buy a ticket to a concert in Crimea when it will be liberated. Oh wait, it's 2023 before counteroffensive, and something went wrong with it. I wonder if the people who bought it got a refund. In Ukrainian reality, only 20 out of more than 700 Russian drones reached their target. The rest were shot down by Ukrainian anti-air defense. Also in Ukrainian reality, most of Russians are living without electricity and, of course, without toilets. It might be funny, but in fact, Ukrainian propaganda machine is effective. There are many Ukrainians who believe that Ukrainian victory is inevitable.
Не може такого бути.
Такого не буде. Буде таке, що вона переможе.
Відпадає це питання, тому що такого не може бути. В будь-якому випадку Україна переможе, щоб там не було, і скільки б це не тривало.
Жити в тих трущобах, що вони там живуть, ні, це біда, це для нашої країни.
Ми однозначно переможемо. Ми ж нащадки козаків, як може бути інакше?
Не визнана якась така територія сіра, без економіки і так далі.
Нас би просто, уніжали, як раніше, просто оце Союз, Російська імперія і це все.
Було б рабство. Ми були під п'ятою Москви.
Стало до честі провінціальної Росії.
Геноцид.
Повна окупація Росією, геноцид українського народу і далі повне зросійщення всіх українців.
Та це взагалі рабство, мабуть.
То, що казав Подоляк, нам кінець, ми боремося за своє виживання.
Sometimes Ukrainian media saying that Ukraine is in default, that Ukraine lost 40% of labor force and around 25% of children. But usually they are silent about this, so Ukrainians don't need to think about it. Using brain in Ukraine is not required, just blame Russians and help Ukrainian army.